Support comes from the Missouri Forest Products Association, saluting Earth Day on April 22nd with an ongoing commitment to help offset carbon emissions with sustainable harvesting of Missouri forests. Details at choosewood.com.
Welcome to St. Louis on the Air. I'm Sarah Fensky. Believe it or not, Missouri averages about 200 sunny days every year. We're no Arizona, but we're also generating a whole lot of solar power. And for the most part, we're not using it. According to the U.S. Energy Information Administration, the state gets just 6% of its electricity from renewable sources, and only a small percentage of that small percentage comes from solar power. The Missouri Botanical Garden wants to change that. It has a new pilot program called Grow Solar St. Louis. It's in partnership with Midwest Renewable Energy Association and Washington University. It provides education and helps individuals pool their buying power for discounts on solar panels. Here to discuss this new program is Glenda Abney. She's the director of the Earthways Center at the Missouri Botanical Garden. Glenda, welcome to the show.
Thanks very much for having me.
We're also joined by Eric Schneider. He's the director of business development at Straight Up Solar. They're the St. Louis-based company that has partnered with the garden to provide and install the solar panels. Eric, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you.
Do you have questions for our guests about solar power? Or would you like to share about your experience in getting solar panels? Give us a call at 314-382-8255. That's 382-TALK. Or you can send us a tweet at STL on air or email us at talk@stlpublicradio.org. So Glenda, let's start with you. How did this initiative begin?
You know, it was really great. Here at Missouri Botanical Garden, within our sustainability division, we have more than 30 programs we do out into the community to help community members, businesses, municipalities, help them advance in their sustainability efforts. So we've been watching these Grow Solar programs. There's over 22 of them in the upper Midwest area. We've been watching them for when it was the right time to bring to St. Louis, and we feel now is the right time for that to happen.
So how did Washington University end up getting involved?
Interesting. We had actually been in conversation with Midwest Renewable Energy Association about bringing the program to St. Louis, had worked out most of the details, and then found out that Washington University had also been interested in such a program. So we reached out to them and said, how about the three of us partner together? And they were more than happy to do that.
That's amazing because often people begin that kind of conversation and then turf politics and people end up fighting. You guys just made it happen.
We did. Well, that's primarily because Missouri Botanical Garden and Washington University here in the local areas are both of us as organizations are very committed to advancing sustainability in the region. So it was a win-win for all of us.
Now, Eric Schneider, for the uninitiated, solar might sound a bit unreliable. Give us a little overview of how this works. How do you keep the power going for these houses even when it's cloudy outside?
Well, as you know, the sun always shines. The sun always rises, hopefully, unless there's an apocalypse. But so solar is basically just an electronic generation machine here, essentially. Here, it takes the sun, gets the sun rays with direct current, and then the array turns, using an inverter process, is able to take the direct current and turn it into alternate current that ties into the grid, that ties into your house. It's a very simple process. It's just very simple electronic appliance that goes on your roof.
So you're not unplugging from the grid, you're actually adding power to it.
Exactly.
Not just taking it away like most of us.
Right.
Okay, so you've handled this kind of group buying situation before in Illinois. How does that work?
Sure. Well, first of all, I want to say how proud we are to be part of Grow Solar St. Louis. We were competitively selected through an RFP process, and the reason we're really excited to join with Missouri Botanical Garden and Washington University is that the mission of Straight Up Solar is to inspire a solar tribe to create a more sustainable world. And the program really is a community education program that tells people how solar works here. And so by applying for the program here, we do these power hours all across the region to advise people how solar works, and then as part of RFP we bid a base rate that is part of the solar program. So there's a base program, and then as more people sign on to the program, it's like a Groupon. So as we hit our marks, as more solar is sold in the St. Louis region, there's a 1% discount, a 2% discount, and a 3% discount the more we sell. So it's a combination of a community education program with the Groupon as more people get engaged. It's a real exciting program.
You also mentioned this solar power hour. Glenda, can you tell us what that is?
Sure. That's the primary way that we want to educate everybody about the information that's needed for solar. So these solar power hours happen 1 to 3 times a week. They started at the end of August and will go into the the first week of November. And this is the best way for you to come and learn more about the program. 1 hour later, and we have them in various restaurants and breweries and libraries and community centers. 1 hour later, you will have received all the information that you need in order to assess out if this is going to be the right fit for you. So you learn way more about the program, about what solar is, how it benefits your house. You can actually right then go to the back of the room and talk to a technician, and they can pull up your house and tell you about the viability for your house. You'll learn about the group buy program. You learn about financing options.
So this is kind of a crash course.
It
in
is.
Everything you need to know in 1 hour.
1 hour later. So that's the only investment you have to make, no cost to you. And then if you're interested in moving forward, as Eric said, you can have the straight up solar folks out to your house, also at no cost to you, to further assess it out. And then if you determine that it's the right fit for you, then you can begin to talk contracts. But these solar power hours, 1 hour later, you get all the information you need.
Now, we talked to somebody who went to one of those. Her name is Elise Smith of Valley Park, and she's actually going to be getting panels installed on October 10th through this program. She told us the reasons why.
The reason I did it, because I want to make sure my kids somehow, when they asked me what did I do, what was my part that I did to reduce our dependence of on fossil fuels, is that I have the sun energy provide us some electricity for our daily use. I'm taking off about 2 cars worth off the roads with just the solar.
That's Elise Smith of Valley Park. Eric Schneider, she talked about she's basically going to be taking 2 cars off the road. Is that an accurate assessment of what kind of impact a homeowner could be having here?
Well, certainly. Let me just mention that so far in the Grow Solar St. Louis program, we've sold 18 installations. 18 homes have gone solar through the Grow Solar St. Louis program. And if you do the calculations of how much solar energy, it's the equivalent of carbon reduction of 192,000 pounds of carbon reduction. Now, the EPA, US EPA, has a greenhouse gas calculator. So we can take that carbon reduction number and turn it into how much cars is off the road. For instance, that same number of 192,000 pounds of carbon offset is the equivalent of 95,000 pounds of coal, or half a coal car. So if you're sitting at the train waiting for that train to pass, that's one less coal car. You have to wait for it because we're a coal. Ameren uses coal for energy, but now we're transitioning our energy sources from coal to solar.
Now, Elise Smith told our producer that she had first thought about getting solar panels years ago through an Ameren program, but she finally felt compelled to take the plunge this year, and she's hoping the panels will pay for themselves over time.
My thinking was I have to pay electric bill no matter what, right? So I'm going to get a loan or use whatever. I'm going to use my money or my savings and pay for that. But then I save also every month. Let's say $50 I save a month. This is $600 a year, right? What I would save, I can put it towards my savings or the loan. And eventually, I won't have that. I don't have to pay anything, and I'm just going to enjoy the free energy the sun provides.
That's Elise Smith, who's getting solar panels installed this Friday. So, Eric Schneider, walk us through this. So there is this upfront cost. Then what kind of savings can people expect to see over time?
Well, certainly. First of all, there's the upfront cost. I just wanted to mention that there's a federal tax credit, called the investment tax credit, that applies for when you purchase a solar array. That's 30% right now, and it steps down to 26% next year. Then Ameren offers a 25-cent a watt rebate for your solar panel. So in most cases for the average home, that could be a $1,500 to $2,000 rebate. That's a check that's sent directly to you from Ameren. So in what we've seen here, the average size array in this Grow Solar St. Louis program is what we call is 5.5 kilowatts. That's 5,500 watts of energy that could be produced at a maximum time period. The average payback is 16 years. So the cost of the array in Elise Smith's example, in the 16th year, then she's getting completely free energy. Her entire system's been paid off and everything is free. I also wanted to mention that the average savings that we see in a household is a $700 a year savings in the energy cost. So the typical house typically goes about 75% solar energy and 25% kind of Ameren energy, regular energy over the course of the year, because some days are sunny, some days are not. And then the average saving, that gap is about $700 per year. You translate that over 25 years, that's almost like a $24,000 savings.
And what's the average upfront cost for those who aren't good enough at math to follow that?
Yeah, it all depends on the house. It depends on the orientation of the house. But in general, I would say the average size array that we're seeing through this program is costing at the top level before the rebates, before the tax credit, $15,000 to $25,000.
Okay. So there is an upfront cost, but lots of perks on the back end. I'm going to go to the phone lines here. We've got a call who has a question for our esteemed panel here. Mike calling from Maplewood. Hi, you're on St. Louis on the Air.
Hi, how are you?
Thank you for joining us, Mike. What's your question for our guests?
I just have a question about grant programs out there. Are there any other grant programs available to homeowners to purchase solar panels to help with that upfront cost at all?
Mike, that's a great question. I hate to put either of you on the spot, but are either of you aware of anything else, Glenda Abney?
At this point in time, we're unaware of grant programs that they would help, but there are great financing options that are out there. And if you come to this solar power hours, you will hear about those. The Clean Energy Credit Union is one that Straight Up Solar interacts with, and it's really a great way. So, because that's a really good question that Mike has, because indeed people want to look at ways to have some kind of a way to assist with it up front. So that's one option, is that there are financing things.
Eric?
Yeah, just to repeat, there's the federal tax credit that helps offset the cost. There's the Ameren rebate. Glenda mentioned, financing through, we have a Clean Energy Credit Union, but I wanted to mention PACE. There's a program in St. Louis County and St. Louis City that allows you to finance a solar array via your property taxes. It's called a voluntary tax assessment that stays with the property. So when you sell your home, the next owner picks up the remainder of the cost of the solar array, and those loans go out 20 years. So that's a very affordable. But to answer his question, there's no grant programs, but there's plenty of other flexible financing
There are some other
programs.
options. Okay, Mike, hopefully that answers your question. Thank you so much for calling in. We actually got an email from another listener, Tom. He says, is it possible to buy and install solar panels for just a small portion of a home's electricity needs? For example, could a homeowner get enough solar power to run a refrigerator? If so, how much would the equipment for that cost? Glenda, I see you nodding. Have you gotten this question before?
We have, and our technical expert, Eric, will have more details to it. But just to say, certainly, rarely do people in our area actually install all the solar panels that it would need to power all of the energy needs within your home. So yes, people are only doing small ones. The amount of solar that you would need to power a refrigerator, refrigerators have come a long way in terms of their efficiency. So unless that's a really old refrigerator, that's not going to be very much power they're going to need to run that. So
Hardly even going to be worth it then.
So right. So we would actually recommend that they look at a larger scale thing, not just look at trying to do a refrigerator. Also, because what we typically espouse through the program are grid-tied systems. So these are not the kind of program where they're going to have their own panel directly tied to the refrigerator, but it's tied actually through the grid.
You're creating electricity that goes back into the pool for everyone.
Correct.
Okay.
So
So
we
it wouldn't make
recommend-
sense to just say, I'm using this on this one appliance.
Right, but
You're
he
sending
could-
it back to the city.
Yeah, he could do a even a small size system, and then say he's got his whole kitchen and den, let's say, or whatever on it. So we could figure out for him what the load would be to equivalent to what kind of appliances he may have.
And if you're getting a significantly smaller set of panels, is that then significantly cheaper? Is that how it works, or not necessarily? Eric.
Yes, if you have less panels, it would be cheaper. Obviously, the panel cost, there's also labor costs, there's installation costs. So it would be cheaper.
Okay. Now we have time for just one more question. And Eric, I was interested to find out that you told one of our producers you yourself actually don't have solar panels. And this has to do with just where the trees are on your lot. Some people are not a good candidate for this. If people are curious if they're going to be a good candidate, how can they get that information?
Yeah, certainly. There's two ways to do it. First of all, Google has a program called Project Sunroof. You can just go online and it will give you an overhead map of your house and give you a sense of where the sun is shining in terms of what direction, how strong the sun is on your roof here. And certainly you can call us at Straight Up Solar. You can just we have another program called Helioscope that is a little more sophisticated. It can kind of say exactly how the sun is looking on your roof and maybe how many arrays could work on that. So there's a variety of options to do that here. But I encourage you to come to a power hour because we have our project developers who are there on site, can take a look, bring your address, and we can look at your home and give you a quick assessment. If it
Seems like these power hours are the best starting point for any of this. So unfortunately, we're out of time. I want to say Glenda Abney of the Missouri Botanical Garden, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you.
And Eric Schneider of Straight Up Solar, thank you for coming by.
My pleasure.
This is St. Louis on the Air on St. Louis Public Radio, 90.7 KWMU.
Support comes from the Missouri Forest Products Association, saluting Earth Day on April 22nd with an ongoing commitment to help offset carbon emissions with sustainable harvesting of Missouri forests. Details at choosewood.com. The Gateway brings you the day's news from the St. Louis region and across Missouri. It also includes stories from the Illinois side of the river and our Metro East reporter, Will Bauer.
In Alton, in Belleville, in East St. Louis, in Edwardsville, in Cahokia Heights, at Scott Air Force Base, I'm Will Bauer, St. Louis Public Radio.
Listen to reports from Will and all of our journalists weekdays on The Gateway, on the STLPR app, and wherever you get podcasts.